The meeting hasn't started yet.
Okay.
Let's bring the meeting to order at 6:02, and we will please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I would like to make an announcement. We can't discuss it because it's not on our agenda. It's something that I will be following up on, and if anyone has the ability to follow up on it, but as you know, Skamania County, school districts and county, along with several other counties in the state who have majority of their lands owned by the federal government, will receive forest funds on occasion now. It used to be on a regular basis in lieu of property tax. Kristen heard that that money that comes into us in lieu of property tax will be deducted from our standard state apportionment.
What?
Oh, no
So,
kidding.
I'm going to double check that because I think there's some misunderstanding, maybe other federal funds. I don't see how they could do that because it is in lieu of property tax. So I'll be exploring that, and if you want to explore it, that's fine, but we really can't get into discussion since it's not on our agenda. And so, you know, there's a lot of changes going on. I think there's just probably some misunderstandings going on. Other funds may be coming from the feds or something, so
Yeah,
we'll check that out. So Kelly, let's do it.
well, as it pertains to our budget, that
We
that,
could have that as it comes up in wherever we're looking at that category when
Yeah.
she brings that up.
Certainly.
Well, if it's gonna be in lieu of, then it's still gonna be the same dollar amount, right? So.
No, so
Yeah.
originally, I will explain it further. Originally, we received for years and years and years forever, so I can remember, a percentage of the harvest
Yeah,
tax
okay.
when the federal harvested
Right.
timber off their land. But when the environmental issues went into place, there wasn't any harvest to speak of, and we were really hurting for money. So there was a piece of congressional legislation that went through to give us a certain amount of money, each of these counties, including counties in Northern California and Oregon, as well as Washington. And it was a 5-year allocation or appropriation, whichever the right word is. As it turned out, we've had to go back every 5 years, and usually the county commissioners take that role. And they go back and work with Congress to get it renewed. Well, then it wasn't renewed, then it was, and I actually don't even know what it is right now. That's why we never know if money is coming in or not.
Huh, okay.
And we have no clue how much. And so some years we don't get anything, some years we do.
But my original statement was, if it's in lieu of, then the dollar amount should not change.
It is in lieu of, but it was never calculated based on ownership.
Okay,
It was always calculated based on harvest.
so it's not a dollar per dollar.
No.
In lieu of then,
No,
okay,
it's because, and in lieu might not be the right word, it's one that's
Right.
always been used, but because they own so much land and we get no property tax from that land,
yeah,
instead, we got a percentage of harvest, and now instead we get whatever legislation happens to go through Congress to award us funding.
where they own like 9/10 of the freaking county.
85%.
85%, yeah. they
Actually,
own-
it's more than that
Yeah,
if you
it's-
add
it's a
Forest
lot.
Service, scenic area together.
well, an important part of that discussion is the districts that are eligible for federal forest funds don't get matching capital funds. That's an important part, but we have to pay all of our capital stuff ourselves, apart from grants, but we don't get the same matching funds from the state for our capital projects because we're eligible for federal forest funds, so it shouldn't come out of our
And that's
operational
why we
budget.
do not budget to spend that money. A, we don't know what's coming in. B, it goes in to provide funds for capital.
So capital projects. Now, just so you know, the capital project plan that's on our included, that we have talked about several times, is not under the standard capital projects program from the state. It is an allocation directly from the legislature.
Right.
Which we haven't gotten yet.
But still, the forest fund monies we used to get were a very much larger amount than we've gotten for
Oh, yeah,
Right.
a
huge,
long time.
huge.
Yeah.
Sorry, I gotta have that on.
And that,
Everyone's here, everybody else is gone.
and that, they're all done there. Okay, so that is the reason that we do not have the tax base to run a levy. So most school districts run a levy, which is supposed to be for extra stuff. Many school districts are running levies just to do their basic funding. But we do not have the land base. If we ran a levy, we'd be lucky if we got one up for one teacher.
Yeah.
I don't think we could get even that
Our
much.
cap is 183,000 to run a levy.
And so we have never run a levy because we just don't have that value and that volume.
Well, we have. We ran one and it failed.
I don't remember that. I might not have been on the board then, but that would be the other thing. Even if we thought we, desperately needed that money, would it pass? And we sold our property that we owned.
That was the year that Angela ran. She
Mhm.
ran the same time the levy was running.
Okay, and that's, see, I was,
ran too.
Yeah.
I was
Two of
off the
us.
board then when that happened, but I worked with her on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So basically, in other words, to summarize, is, money's tight.
pardon?
To summarize, money is tight.
Money is really tough, but
Yeah.
we're very fortunate in some ways. We so far have been able to survive on what we get from the state.
I'm surprised we have to pay property tax. We're run by the state.
We don't have a special levy for the school district,
We can,
but we have a fire district levy, we have a
Hospital
hospital
district,
levy, we have
library
several other,
district.
yeah. That are part of our property tax.
We have lots of things do levy tax, people do. And and if you look at the ambulance levy, that pays for basic survival. That isn't a levy for extras.
Alright. So superintendent,
All right, well, the budget is still unsigned and so there isn't a significant change from the last time we met. But in your packet is the 4-year budget version 2.0. Oh, it's not on there.
Okay.
It's not on the slides. It wouldn't fit. I'll just go back all the way up to the top.
I have a little pencil in my way. Hang on. There we go.
So I thought we would just take a minute and start with this. I've got it broken out in the PowerPoint, but this gives you the whole 4 years. I only broke out the coming year. So if you have any questions about the 4-year budget projection, we can answer those before I get into looking at specifically next year. I'm going out of order. I'm really doing number 3 right now instead of number 2, but it's in your packet first, so I thought that'd be a good place to start. And if nothing jumps out at you, it might as we go through the presentation that mostly covers next year. So.
Looks like a lot of stuff is going down. In cost. Most everything,
Well,
not everything, but
not everything and some things and there are a couple things I'll point out as we go through like the where there are bigger swings than others, like the district-wide support, which I'll answer that question here in just a minute.
So the food service revenues, so now we're talking about revenues are gonna go up, so things are gonna cost more. The lunches and stuff are gonna be a higher cost for the kids.
We actually should qualify for, we may potentially be back to not having, students aren't paying, unlike.
Oh, yeah, oh, nice, nice.
Okay, so I'll walk us through. Go ahead, skip that one, we just talked about it. We don't have information, so I didn't really include much on here. Kristen, has made some projections on revenue, but because we don't really have anything from the state yet, there's nothing to tie in really tight. So we're just gonna roll through that one. And move on to, enrollment and FTE. It's just a top line. Student FTE is projected on here at 42, just, so that in case we get any enrollment after the start of the year. It's pretty much just sort of the number that we're budgeting out for increase. And then all of this is gonna come off this first page as we just kind of walk through it. Next slide, please. So this, again, it's all very preliminary. On here, you can see pretty steady in title money and, the learning assistance program, basic education. There's some changing for CTE. So there's a big shift in that, but it's from 14 to 1,000. Next slide, please. On this one, the biggest thing to note is the district-wide support is, it jumped quite a bit from 24-25 to 25-26. And that's because we moved an employee into that, so their annual salary and benefits got moved into that category, because that's seemed more aligned with where they belonged. So it's just really shifting it from one place to another. Does that make sense?
Which line
So-
item did it shift from?
Where was it's Lisa, so she was in,
Okay,
but she's really district-wide support, so we moved her into the
it
district.
makes more sense.
It makes more
definitely,
sense,
yes.
yeah.
I don't think there's a category here that really,
No,
Yeah, I think some of the K through 8 was, the thought process was allocating what would be necessary for the K through 8 to continue running, even if the high school wasn't there. And that was part of the reason of like putting some positions in K through 8, is like, well, we'd still need that even if we didn't have the high school. But I also see
I think
the
with,
logic of,
yeah, looking at trying to figure out which portion of different things what it would be if we lost PCIA is a real challenge.
It is.
And so as Kristen and I were talking, we felt like we could give a more solid projection if we went with what we're operating under, since PCI is so successful. So that's probably one of the biggest changes that you'll see, is just that shift of Lisa into there. And then next slide, please. A lot of this is based on this year. It's not quite solid yet. So again, it's just projections. At our next meeting, we should have a lot more information, because this OSPI expects to have numbers out the week of May 12th. which
so
will
our
give us time for-
increase in transportation, is that mostly fuel?
So, actually, that's I'm glad you asked. So we realize that there are positions, that also can fall under transportation, like a portion of my time, a portion of Lisa's time, a portion of Amy's, time can fall under transportation. And that, what we spend is what we can get.
Right.
So, Kristen has been, working with me closely to make sure that we're monitoring how much time Lisa, Amy and I, and anyone else in the building spends on items that would fall under transportation, so establishing, snow, an emergency route, all of those types of things would fall under transportation.
Even the responsibilities that teacher has to make sure the kids get on the bus.
Well, and particularly Tim Boucher.
And yeah, whatever of his time that wasn't already on there. So I think, it was
So that's smart.
something new as far as like thinking about like administration.
Mhm.
But I mean, we spent a significant amount of time developing routes. I meet with Barbie every month.
Well-
So there's quite a bit of my time that gets spent on that.
And so then do we have, if we look at our 4-year budget, we should have a benefit, not next year, but
But
the following
it-
year, we're gonna have a
yeah.
benefit on the revenue side that
Yes.
corresponds to that.
Yeah, so you'll see the jump is this year and then it levels back out. Yeah. Next slide. And then, I updated some enrollment numbers, which corresponds with the top number getting us closer to 42. Looking at our returning students and then our wait lists and balancing out the classes. We're looking right now at an enrollment of 39. We still have kindergarten roundup to go, which, may give us another in-district, kindergartner, which would take us up to 40. But right now we only have one in-district kindergartner, so we're projecting one. You can see we have one student who's, not returning. And that's it. And,
Well, 39's a good number since our peak is 40, but we've had to go over that for quite a while, so. And that gets, cause that gives us wiggle room if we get new in-district students.
Sure. Well, I think we always had the 40 was beyond 40, we need to look at what class they're going into and what the load on that class is.
So our policy has 40, is it right? But we have an unwritten policy that no more than, try not to get more than 15 kids per classroom. Not, the intent wasn't to have 15 in every classroom,
Right.
but that 15 was the maximum load
Right.
for a teacher.
But we I have to
had,
look at the because we updated it to give the flexibility to allow the, right, if we have a class with 8, there's no reason not to add a 9th kid, even if we're at 40.
well, I think that's how we've been over 40 for quite a
Yeah.
while now, but I don't remember it saying that in the policy, do you?
it talks about 15 for the class and 40 for the school. Both
Yeah.
numbers are present.
Yeah,
So right now, we're really trying to keep a balance and we're being mindful of numbers that roll up. So if you look at the intermediate elementary, the 3, 4, 5. Thinking about 2 years out, rolling that number up, since we have a large 6th grade class, wanted to be really mindful not to get in a position where just our returning students would take us over 15. So trying to think, a couple years in advance with, kids that have been going to school here for 7 or 8 years, all of a sudden being above the cap would be problematic.
So do we have numbers on in-district kids versus?
Yeah, it's very tiny, I'm sorry. Right now,
percentage is what we've got here, right?
so it would be 62% choice transfer and 38% in district. The second blue column is, students who
there
are
it
in
is.
district.
Right.
So it goes, it's current, the number of current students being rolled into that grade. Of them, how many are in district, what we're looking at being able to add from the wait list. And then any students who are currently attending that are not, re-enrolling. Which the fact that all of our students want to come back -1 says a lot about our program.
Can I go back to, I'm sorry, back to the front page, wherever I put the front page, here it is. On the cost of food services, the revenues versus expenditures. If we have a certain percentage, do we have more revenue or less coming in then? If we have a certain percentage that qualify for free, does the state give us more money, or how does that work?
I don't know that I am confident enough to just answer that off the cuff, but I can get more information on how
And they-
free or reduced lunch
They
impacts.
played around with paying for all lunches, which I
Yes.
thought they were gonna do, but it didn't pass this year, I don't think. I'm pretty sure it did not.
I'm back on the transportation. When our costs go up in transportation, it's usually a lagging, revenue. Are we reallocating what we did this year to say that our costs were higher this year because this is what we spent on, this is what we did on transportation? That's how we're getting the revenue already next year? Versus what we originally budgeted for this year? Is that how we're handling that?
That's my understanding.
That's great.
I've had to walk through the whole question, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so Kristen is, I have to say, like, Kristen is amazing. I probably talk to her at least twice a week. Even more now, we're on Zoom.
Yeah.
Half a day every week right now.
No,
making sure
that's
everything's
awesome.
right.
That's like-
So
that's-
really, every single cent is being examined.
That's $40,000 that we weren't getting.
Wow.
But we're spending every year, and that's a new $40,000 in our budget. That's great. And it makes total sense.
Caption that, in discussion. And then next slide, please. Thank you. And then PCIA enrollment. We've already received 4 applications for freshmen. We have a returning sophomore and we have 2 applications for seniors. So,
That's
we're
good.
looking like we're gonna be able to really balance out the class. A projection for 9th graders, incoming freshmen is a class of 8. Which with the 11 graduating seniors, we would actually, we're projecting to lose 11 and gain 12. So, which doesn't put us anywhere near the 40 cap, but what we'd like to do is get class sizes that are pretty consistently around 9 or 10. And so starting with 8 freshmen is a good way to move towards that goal.
So the sophomore class is still gonna be
The sophomore class is gonna be pretty small.
We haven't done any special advertising either yet.
Yeah, we haven't really even
Tried, yeah,
done
Get
the
the
bulk
word
of
out.
our recruiting.
yeah.
So, but our 8th graders, current 8th graders, are they all planning on?
Not all. But several. We have some, there are like families that might be moving and things like that that are impacting our 8th graders deciding to go to PCIA. It is definitely not program related, the reasons that I'm hearing, which is also a really, really good sign. And then the next slide is really, some not so fortunate news, and it is the next page in your packet with the capital budget and then the list of schools. The FP 288 grant, Mill A is an alternate for the 25-27 biennium. And if you turn to the second of the pages, we are highlighted as being pretty far down the alternate list. So it is highly unlikely that we'll make it as an alternate in this biennium for the FP 288 grant, and I don't have any new information on the FP 9 grant. Both of those are in the range of $6 million apiece. So in looking at where we are, even with our need, but with the quote of a portable being almost $400,000, planning for any capital projects next year does not seem like it would be a prudent decision. Unless somebody wants to move in that direction and impact the ending fund balance, the general fund, and or go up for levy.
So. What is the general feeling as to the next round in the next biennium, if this round is?
I'm really shocked we didn't make it this far. So I think if this continues to get funded,
Then we'll be in a good,
we would be in a good
because a
position.
lot of these higher priority ones
They,
in the forties will have already been funded.
correct, and they funded a lot of, tribal schools as
Yeah, I
well
see
this
that.
time around, so,
So are they doing this every year? Cause it seems like last year there was planning money. And so are they doing both planning and construction
Mhm.
every year or every other year? Every biennium?
they are. My understanding is that they are allocating it yearly, but planning in the biennium, so we would
Okay,
be we would be looking at the next biennium
Okay.
for funding. There is a chance that there might be more planning money because it's now, because of the delay. That we did. Because we've already used our $20,000, we actually spent 21,000 on the planning portion. So there is the potential to get planning money before we get an actual construction grant again, but that's not a guarantee either. But we don't have an answer on the FP9 grant yet. Although honestly, I think that if they were to happen at the same time, it would be a much better situation for us than to get half or 6 million and then 6 million later, because. it really
yeah, how do you
changes it.
decide what to do and you
Yeah.
leave yourself in limbo for a year or
Yeah.
two?
I mean, we would just be doing. Very urgent upgrades and then redoing some of the construction around that with the second one, so it wouldn't be the best use of funds.
So right now, we're like 21 down on the alternate, so you're saying
Yeah.
next year,
Next biennium, most likely.
okay, so then we'd move up.
Yeah, they funded 42 construction projects basically,
Mhm.
and there's still another 20 ahead of us.
21, 22. Okay,
Yeah, so, sorry to have bad news.
yeah, is what it is.
So, when I was, in talking with Kristen, I mean, really, the things that we could look at would be, spending our own money or trying for a levy, and levies are not passing very well right now, so. Our maximum for a levy would be 183,000, which wouldn't
even give us a pod.
even give us a pod.
Yeah. So I guess another thing that maybe we could research is that ESD is really handling all of this for us. But maybe with you here as a new person, we would have an opportunity to review what ESD has written as the justification. And you might be able to make some comments that would improve that. And, they write it for us, but they interview you and ask you questions. And that's what they did with me, and I think you'd probably do a better job, because now you really know how we're hurting. And so if you could get a hold of the gentleman, and ask him if could have an opportunity to review the text that goes with our request. I think that'd be a good idea, if they're not offended or anything, but you seemed like a pretty nice guy.
We can do that. My sense from the board over the last several conversations is that spending $400,000 on a pod is not something that seems like a good idea at the moment. And like you said, a levy wouldn't even pay for that, and they're also not passing, so.
Probably a good idea to wait and see what the impact is of the variety of funding that the state seems to think that we might lose. I don't even know how to phrase it, but I think there could be some potential changes in funding over the next year especially, and the year after that, depending on how things work out between the state and the feds. So it's probably not a good idea to take the risk of lowering our balance.
No,
that we might.
I would say, like the comment we had earlier. If they went to a position of, we match your capital projects like they do in other districts. But any federal forest funds come out of what we'll match, that would make sense. And that would be a better situation for us. So when there aren't federal forest funds, we still are able to apply for the state matching dollars that every other school district gets. You know, if that was what was actually working its way through to like treat us like any other district, since the federal forest funds aren't reliable anymore. But if we got any, it would come out of what they will match. That
So it
would,
might be a good idea to have a conversation with Kevin Waters, our representative, because he is familiar with Skamania County school funding.
sure,
Since he was our EDC director, and still is, and he has what, 3 kids, 3 or 4?
He only has two.
Yeah.
Huh?
He only has two.
Oh, he only has 2.
Tom
Oh,
has,
he's one of many.
he is, yeah,
He's one of many.
and his brother has
Yeah,
like 3 or 4.
and so I'm sure they're pretty knowledgeable about the funding situation.
yeah,
And if we could just,
find out, because I mean, honestly, like. I'm not hopeful that that's what it is, but that would be something that actually made sense.
Well,
Right,
we
because
could-
we have all these districts that
yeah,
can't get matching funds. Like the rest of the state,
right,
for a funding source that's gone away.
yeah, and they're running bonds.
Right.
To fund their capital project, school buildings. So it'd be nice to have a conversation with him as Mill A. I mean, he's familiar with Stevenson, but just to make sure he knows the impact on the other school districts as well.
We have to realize there's no way a levy would ever,
Pardon?
there's no way a levy would have passed.
It would,
And it wouldn't even give us enough money to make it worthwhile to even try.
That's right.
$1 million house would, see a $1,500 a year cost. If we went for the maximum. That's a lot. And they're not, and
Well, I mean,
they're
that's-
not passing.
You're right, because $1 million cost house sounds,
It's not
Huge. It's-
glamorous
it's not-
anymore.
it's not.
It's not.
It's not
No.
anymore, when you know the amount of, that the last few houses up here that have sold
right,
have been, it's.
and,
The
and,
one we
$1 million.
looked at in Mill A was 995,000 and it didn't even have land.
yeah.
So like the property values are pretty
Yeah.
significant.
And there's a lot of people who are seeing their assessments go up, up,
Up.
up every year.
Every year,
So,
yeah.
Well, property tax will go up this year.
yeah,
Yeah,
Just-
they're
just-
going up,
just from the assessment and from the,
right? Yeah, the state just passed, I think the governor just signed that.
Oh, it went up significantly, like what the governor just passed, so,
oh, yeah.
in percentages.
Yes.
So that is pretty much the bulk of the new information. Again, waiting for the governor to actually sign the budget to make sure nothing gets vetoed. ESD contracts are, we still have not been finalized. We should have those soon. And then Kristen and I are scheduled to, meet on Monday to start talking MSACs.
So is there any way to save a little bit of money, through those, cause I think we have 15 or 20 contracts with ESD by doing some things ourselves, or is that not gonna be saving us money? Is there any opportunity there?
I have not come across a contract that is not a good value.
Okay,
I mean, I can say like, our communications contract, is one of the most valuable things that
okay,
we have. As far as the support that we get and they do things like audit our website for compliance and they do a lot more.
are they still doing our PCIA website?
They're helping us with all now that we did the merger.
Okay, so we don't have any, Any situations with using the wrong photo or something.
correct,
Image.
and they actually, have a way of like checking, if there are any things flying around social media that would flag that we would need to pay attention to or anything like that. So
Oh,
they're,
that's really good.
also have a weekly standing meeting with the communications department to help.
That's excellent, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very valuable contract. And that is,
So have we,
Yeah. so I guess we just can go into discussion.
did you, do we have, maybe a little bit extra for, attorney fees if we should happen to have any litigation?
We have, Kristen and I will be looking at, that'll be one of the things that we still need to look at.
And
Back
that's
out
in, that
that
would
far.
be under the district-wide support. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, let's see.
my
Are
hope
we
is
need
to not exceed what was already budgeted. So, like not need to increase it for next year, but we'll see.
Could we just do all?
Sorry,
of
my
these?
nose is running. I, just finished mowing the
We talked
lawn.
about capital project.
I did kind of cover it all in one thing.
Okay.
So maybe-
Okay. Can we, on the next workshops, I was not prepared for my June dates. Can we get those to you or accept those dates that are regular board meeting?
Absolutely, yeah. And we may not really even need them depending on how much I have for the board at the regular.
At
I
the-
did
meeting.
put this together just so we could, we don't lose track. Here's one for Jessica, lose track of, when we have to get advertised in the Pioneer. So when we have to have, so we accept our budget as complete. And it's transmitted on July 10th, but then has to be formally adopted. And, transmitted on by August 1st. So I backed that up. So I don't know, now we are allowed an extra. We're, I think allowed an extra 30 days if the legislature doesn't have their budget approved by June 1st. So it's due by July 10th. The superintendent of public instruction, may delay the dates. If, for the July 10th date, he may delay that if the state's operating budget is not finally approved by the legislature before June 1st. So we may have OSPI may give us a leeway on that July 10th deadline. If it's
Yeah,
not-
I'll double check with Kristen, cause we have a call with her. And that information isn't aligning with the information that
Well, I'm reading the state law.
right, and that's why I said, I'm gonna double check with Kristen.
I'll give you those. I can always make another.
And I
She
can,
said we were a class 2 district.
yeah,
And
We are.
so it made, she said the last date was the 15th, July 15th. Is what my.
The
notes
class
said.
2 district only affects the August date. But we can read the state law. Who knows, maybe they've changed it.
I didn't bring the notes from that call with me tonight, so.
But so the big question is, how many more workshops do we need? And it looks like the budget's in really good shape and we don't need a lot of additional workshops other than to make sure we thoroughly understand it.
Especially if we're just gonna buckle down and hold tight
Pardon?
especially if we're just gonna hold tight with everything, we're not gonna be spending
That's
money
right.
doing anything foolish.
Yeah. The only thing we didn't talk about is whether or not we want to move another 200,000 from our general fund into the capital budget like we did this last
Do we
year.
need to?
Pardon?
Do we need to and what for?
Well, the reason that you would do it, and I probably can't explain it very well. But if it isn't budgeted, then you can't move it in the middle of the year.
You have to go through the whole budget.
Redo your
process
budget,
again.
do a
And
supplemental
that's
budget
another
approval.
long process.
So if the capital basically if our alternate stuff came through, which we don't think is likely, or in part of the reason we kept things in the general fund was it used to be very hard to ever move anything out of the capital fund once you did, even though we generally understood this to be capital funding for not our operations, but for capital funding. But if you moved it into capital, it used to be, you couldn't move it back for a expense that would be classified as an operational expense.
That's exactly right.
And that's not
we
the case
learned Last
anymore.
year that we could move it from capital back into the general fund. And we learned that last year, and so that's why we went ahead and moved it. So it would be used, there's several things possible. Maybe there's some expenses we have to use prior to the grant from the legislature, might have some reimbursement parts to it.
Right.
Or maybe, we want to do a pod, or, maybe we might come up with some major improvement. Now, they did, just remember, the policy is on our table to move capital funding limit from 5 to 10. So it used to, if we had to do something that improved the value of the building, that cost us over $5,000, we had to use capital funds, but now that's up to $10,000, so that's
Okay.
really good.
So did we spend that
No,
last one?
no,
No,
it's,
we
it's,
have
it's now in our capital fund. The reason to do it, in my opinion, would be that it better reflects our intention for the use of that money. So from a transparency and from a messaging standpoint, it's not general funds, it's funds for future capital.
And Eric is right on target. We were getting some criticism for having such a large general fund balance, and no matter how many times we explained that we have to fund 100% any capital expenditures, it didn't get through.
It's just, it's out of the norm.
Yes.
So we,
So most
Yeah.
people just go.
Yeah,
oh.
even in contract negotiations,
Right.
right over their head.
Right.
so it
Yeah.
sounds like what I'm hearing is that we're more comfortable with the ending fund balance being lower if it's moved into capital.
I think,
Right.
I think it would make sense, I think it would reflect how we're.
Well,
how we feel
especially
about
if you're able to move it back, if you don't want.
If there's an emergency or, yeah.
But don't we have to budget for an amount that goes from the general fund into the capital fund?
Yeah.
And that would be
Yes.
what we
So
would,
we would show that.
yeah, so we
Okay.
would need to
Right, okay.
decide what amount the board's comfortable with taking out of the general fund ending balance and moving into the capital. And so even when these grants come through, it's only, or the modernization grants come through, it will not allow us to do anything that isn't already on the existing
Yeah.
footprint. We can't build up, we can't build out. So we would not be able to use that money for affordable anyways. So when we get to the point where we decide to buy a portable, it will come from our own funding.
So
Okay,
where-
so do
where's
we
our-
wanna set
where's our
another
funding at right
budget
now?
workshop, or do we wanna wait until our regular meeting, which is only
That's,
a week and a half away?
that's my request, is that
Yes.
we see where we're at,
Yeah.
what's presented to
Yeah.
us.
And I won't have
Okay.
any new numbers until probably then, because I'm gonna meet with Kristen on
Yeah.
Monday and then need time to do something with it.
Okay, anything else to discuss regarding the budget and expenditures, level of, our student population or allocation of, FTEs and that kind of thing? Anybody have any questions, or are we in good shape?
I think we're in pretty good shape. We've got a few things on MSAC side that we'll talk about once we've got that figured out, but nothing too surprising.
I think the legislature increased the MSEC dollars a little bit, but not teacher dollars or staff dollars. I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, we did, and there is a one-time this year $50 per pupil.
I
payment
saw
we're
that and I
getting,
wasn't sure where that was going to come in through.
But it's
Yeah.
for this year. It is. One-time funding equal to $50 per pupil to all school districts during the 24-25 school year. So It's not a significant amount of money for a district with
Yeah.
70 students.
Anything's better than nothing, I guess.
We'll take
Right.
it,
It's
yeah.
something, yeah.
Okay, so our next meeting is June 16th. No, I mean, excuse me, May,
Thank
May,
you.
May, May, May.
May 19th.
19th, Monday, a week from Monday is our regular board meeting. So I will see everyone then.
Any idea when the next meeting after that? I'm not gonna be here for next meeting. So, when is the June?
The regular board
June
meeting is
16th.
June
Yeah,
16th.
I got that, but there's two other Junes in here.
Well, those are as if needed,
Okay.
just from the budget outline that we are following from previous years.
So don't know.
We don't know if we will need them.
We don't know if or when.
We don't know if.
We'll
or
decide
when.
next.
Yeah,
We do, I mean, we do have a much more robust, budget workshop scheduled than a lot of other districts of similar size.
Yeah.
So I feel like, we are unlikely to need
Well, I don't,
two
yeah,
in addition to the regular. I mean, one maybe, but
I don't feel like we're working through a lot of like major changes, so.
but yeah, we don't have any issues on the table that we need to continue to discuss in order to come up with a number for our budget.
I think, one thing to keep in mind though is looking at these dates. If we wanna have a separate meeting on the same day, on July 21st and approve, then we have to get it published by July 7th, right? Cause we need 2
Yeah.
weeks. So that would be our goal, is to get it ahead of the July
which is
7th.
why the 2 June slots are above June 16th. So that we're all set on that
Got it.
June 16th meeting.
Then hopefully at June 16th, we can just adopt or whatever.
We're ready to, yeah, we're ready to move forward,
Yeah,
publish
great.
it and be done. That's the goal.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Consensus to adjourn?
yeah.
All right. 6:49, Jessica, we're not even a full hour.
These ones are
Look at
quick.
that.